Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Derek and Craig. We're going to be talking about what is it? You put it on there. It looked kind of weird on the screen, Craig, but it's stuff that we find, and we don't have any idea what it is. We know it's something. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. I wanted to also, Craig, talk a little bit about this Patreon thing, because Craig and I are still learning how to navigate this thing. It's for Hardcore Metal Detecting Radio. You can get to it at patreon.com/hardcore metal detecting. And, you can check it out and see if you want to be a supporter and what our goals are, what we were trying to do. And we're adding to this also, guys. We're, like I said, we just started this thing up on and released it on Saturday. And we're still kind of learning how to navigate the page and how to add stuff. And, we're doing all that pretty much to involve others in the hobby that maybe have Facebook pages, YouTube channels. Maybe you have a product that you make. Trying to give them an easier way to kind of get out to the people in the hobby about what they do. I mean, Craig, you know as well as I do, it's really hard to. There's so much information and so many formats out there, and you're trying to. Find information about a single product. Maybe it's not as well known, like the detector shaft that you had, you found for the Equinox, and you're dealing with a smaller company or whatever, and the cost of advertising is crazy, and for us in the hobby, I mean, it's difficult to be able to afford a lot of that just to promote your pages and get supporters, get people to. Subscribe to your channels and all these rules and stuff like that, and we're trying to do it in a different way to try to involve other people, and plus give them cool prizes. We got we're going to have swag bags and get your name on the show and kind of promote you, and it's just we're all trying to do the same thing, have fun in a hobby, but the hobby leads into so many different things that you like to do. And, others like to do them also. They might find them interesting. One of them, Craig, was Instagram. I mean, not that I've been fighting getting on Instagram, but I've been, I can't do it from my Mac. I got to do it from my phone. I don't do a lot of stuff from my phone itself. But I was on there and, I was kind of getting used to the way they do everything on there. And I ended up finding a bunch of people a bunch of you guys out there that metal detect, and ladies too, when I say guys, I mean guys and, women and kids and everything. Just we're all friends. We're all, in the same hobby. But I got on there, Craig, and I was planning on doing all this, learning all this, and I got to talking to a guy from up in Massachusetts, and he was finding really cool stuff and has been for quite a while, and it turned into be an hour-long conversation just about, and I didn't get to see a lot of the other stuff I wanted to look at on Instagram. That thing's getting crazy, for me anyways, but it's really cool. I like the idea of it, and it's more to the point, it's more singular too.
I started doing Instagram about a year and a half ago, and I had an account for a while, but I hadn't really done anything with it, and I built it up pretty quick, over 1,000 people following me and stuff on there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of relic hunters and people all over the world that post their finds on there. It's basically it's kind of easy. It's just photos and small, short videos.
Right.
You got a thing called Instagram TV that you can put longer videos on. I thought that was going to probably take off, but it didn't seem to really do anything. It had a good buzz for about a month, but I think the trouble is the format is in portrait mode, instead
right.
of the movie mode. But Instagram's good for advertising. A lot of people are advertising on it, showing products. I've seen a lot of musicians, a lot of people metal detecting, a lot of sports. I saw quite a bit of tennis on there. A lot of guys have, even the pros have Instagram accounts on there. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, if you metal detect too, Craig, I didn't even mention this. I mean, we have some of the guys out there like Dave Ettinger from Don't Tread on Me that he'll get on there and do live stream on Facebook and stuff like that. You know, playing guitar, just having a good time. And you know, if you're a musician or something like that too, I mean, I think people that make the videos and make the stuff for Facebook or whatever their channels, music is a good thing. If you have like a jingle, like you know that you're pretty good, you're a musician, whatever, you know, put it up on hardcore metal detecting. I mean, some of these guys need intro music and all that kind of stuff. I'm always looking for that. One of the things I like about the show is I can kind of, you know, get around on different music sites and, you know, for startup music for my videos or what have you. And I haven't really started doing a lot of videos just yet. It's been, you know, just kind of weird down here for me right now. But, you know, Craig, I thought about re-releasing our a lot of the videos I made for the Bliss tool, because I do include, you know, the things that we do can be kind of transferred over to other detectors. And the reason I took them off there is because, you know, we did run, you know, Bliss Tool America and all that stuff, and I had a lot of the promos or whatever you want to call them in the videos, and I'm trying to cut those out and just have the raw footage or whatever of whatever it was I was doing or finding. Thought about putting those up on Patreon too, Craig, and because they, you know, like ground balancing and how to set up, you know, just general to help out people that maybe have a Bliss Tool metal detector, or maybe look at the video and say, well, wait a minute, I think mine can do that too, and be able to help them out with settings. So that was another idea I had. I know you have a ton of videos also that may, you know, for the Deus or whatever else. That's something else we got to look into, and it would just, you know, be our patrons, you know, supporters that would be able to see these videos, because well, you have yours up on YouTube still. I just took mine down, but it was just a thought I had to offer more, you know, information, you know, about, you know, certain detectors and stuff. I thought that'd be kind of cool rather than deal with that whole hoopla on you know, YouTube. You know, trying to figure that out and download and everything on there constantly. There's just so many options that it just gets, you know, for me, it's overwhelming sometimes trying to figure it out. Like, we're starting a new newsletter on there. I still got to figure out, you know, the ins and outs of that. And thank God for Bethany. Bethany Powell does the Patreon page and our Facebook pages, and sets them all up for us and everything. She does a really great job, and she's nice enough to make Craig and I templates sometimes so that we don't have to navigate too much and figure out too many things like that. That's not the fun part. The fun part's putting the information in. So,
but we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I was having trouble posting to the new hardcore metal detecting you know, Instagram page, and I didn't realize I was doing it on my iPad Pro and couldn't get the, you know, navigation to come up to log in and stuff. So Bethany said, "Oh, you got to do it. You have an iPhone?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh yeah, you can do it on that." It's like everything's on that, you know, and it was real simple. And I can actually, I have my own page called Bliss Tool Deus, and I can transfer my photos that are on there over to the hardcore page, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, links are back and forth, but we got links to Twitter, and we got the Facebook page, Hardcore Metal Detecting Facebook page, and we got I think we're up close to 2,500 followers on there. Likes and follows on there, but yeah. I kind of put some of the same stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and some of it I send over to Twitter. So you know, we're kind of linking all this stuff up. You know, we got so many different things now to link up, but that's a good thing. You know, it gets more word out.
Oh yeah. And, you know, we have, you know, already have some supporters on Patreon, too. And Loy Milham from Relics Radio is one of our supporters now. And Peter Beaufoy, if I'm not pronouncing your last name right, Peter's usually on chat on our Thursday and Saturday night show He's been on there for quite a while and everything. But Peter, if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, I'm sorry, brother. I'm not the best, as most of y'all know, with last names. Heck, I kind of surprised I can pronounce my own. But yeah, they're have already become supporters on Patreon, and we've had actually a lot of emails and just kind of people talking about what they liked and everything about it. So we are actively trying to make that even better, and we're going to add to it. I mean, Craig and I have so many ideas that we had to get some of this stuff put down on paper, so to speak. And but it's so much information that we're just going to have to add as we go along. I think Craig is the best way to put it. Benefits to our supporters and what we can do for them and stuff like that as you figure out the tier system on there, what tier you want to be on, and as we make our goals.
One thing I can see is, we can be pretty good link to other people that want to sell products. And
right.
I was chatting with the guy that does the Telenox shaft, and he's a pretty interesting guy. He's a friend of mine now on Facebook, and he didn't realize, some of the things. I said, you got a good product, and he's also got a underwater adapter to the Equinox with earbuds, and I think I don't know how much it costs, but it sounds like it's fairly cheap. But and he's saying he's looking into other products too. But I like the attention to the detail on this this telescoping shaft is really good. He tweaked the thing a couple times before he released it. So I also saw a couple other guys that had them that really liked them, and even if you don't use the telescoping part, it's a lot lighter. I mean, it makes this machine
it's light, but it's sturdy. Light. It looks looks really sturdy. It doesn't wiggle, or whether they have that wobble in it. That shaft wobble is what Craig was telling me. I may get one too for my detector.
One of the problems was the shaft, with the round shaft, the control box was kind of slipping and turning, so they added a groove underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So the little box, they actually include another, bottom piece for the control box, because the one on the stock shaft is molded into the shaft itself.
Right.
So anyway, it screws right in, and then you could just slide it right up and down the shaft. And what I did is I just stuck my arm in there and slid it up until it fit in my hand, and that's where I thought that's the perfect place. So I just screwed it in.
That's one nice thing I like about it is you can adjust. So many times I've used detectors. I'm a tall guy and I got longer arms, and the arm cuff never seems to fit quite where I want it on my arm. And with like the Quest and Equinox, you can adjust all that. That the handle, the control box is actually the handle on the Quest, and I can just move it back to where it feels comfortable. It doesn't bother me so much. I mean, that's one thing I've had to deal with over time. But Craig, I wanted to get into this a little bit. I mean, I talked to where this show came from was actually Kevin Mitchell. They call him Field Sweeper on Instagram, and he's a member of the Massachusetts Treasure Hunting Association. And we just got to talking on there, and he started. It got on to what he was finding, and I just kind of asked him about Viking stuff. If he'd ever come across any. I've always thought New Hampshire, for whatever reason, I've always thought New Hampshire may have, stuff like that in it. And of course, Massachusetts has a lot of history to it. And he says, I found a lot, some stuff that looks like it is, but I've never been able to ID it. And it got me thinking about a show, Craig, just about IDing items. We find so much stuff, and Craig and I've always said that don't ever throw anything away unless you know what it is, because you'll may find out a year later, well, God, that thing looks just like, somebody else will find something and know what it is, and here you are, you've thrown it away.
Yeah.
I mean, some of this stuff, it gets been up or whatever, like company letters and stuff. Craig, I remember you telling me a couple times about you didn't know what they were. All of a sudden you unfold them and it's a company letter from the Civil War or something like that.
Yeah.
And just having one isn't important anyways. It's a great find.
Yeah, it's like if you're in any kind of site that's Civil War or even older, colonial or something, or pre-colonial, keep all the brass that you find. Little scraps of, pewter could have designs on them when you get home and clean them.
Right.
But a lot of this stuff was personalized items that broke, usually, and sometimes when they break, it's hard to figure out what it actually came off of or what it was, originally.
Mm-hmm.
But, when I first started, 33, 34 years ago, I was like calling up my friend, that got me into the hobby or going over to his house and showing him stuff, to find out what it was. And, after about 6 months, I started, really figuring out what the stuff was. But then I started, Civil War hunting, and I got into, getting books and stuff. But we used to, when I had the Springfield Detector Club, I was president of it for a couple of years, and everybody used to bring in boxes of their finds for the month, and that was a good way to. We had a lot of guys that were, veterans, had been in the hobby. A lot of them had been in the hobby, much longer than I had.
Right.
And, they could identify some of the stuff, they'd come over and go, oh, that's so-and-so, and they'd always want to know where you found it. And I go, that's it. I found it south of here.
yeah. Somewhere in the state of Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, we get into so many times we do, even ourselves. I mean, we look towards the people that have been in the hobby. Well, you're one of them, Craig. I mean, I've been in it for about 20 years, but I mean, you got about 15 more years on me anyways. But we've always looked to these guys that, like Craig, that have been in the hobby and have hunted for this stuff for years for information on, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Looking for information on items and what is it? What era is it from? What kind of information can you give me on this particular thing? And I've had, like padlocks and strange buckles and just gears. A lot of times you find all these little gears everywhere, and they're probably from a watch or a old fashioned alarm clock, or I see some that they know what a grandfather clock keys, but there was also a mini grand or whatever kind of winder that that wind up the old clocks. You find those things, and even I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a key, like you put it in a door, and it's not. It's weird shaped at the end and stuff. So we come across this stuff, and I've thrown stuff away that I know. I've seen like 2 years later and say, oh my God, I threw something away like that when I first started. And it's like, that was actually pretty cool. That was from, the 1920s, and it was this or that. One of the things I had a heck of a time IDing was a Buddy Poppy from the 20s, which was made out of copper. They're made out of cloth now, little poppy flowers for the VFW and stuff like that, Veterans of Foreign Wars. And I actually found a copper one in a field of all things, and never have found another one. It was just a strange thing to find. Didn't even know they were made like that. So it's kind of like a unique find. It's we call them bucket listers, but you don't even anymore. It's like everything's a bucket lister. If you probably never even thought about finding some of this stuff, and all of a sudden it'll be under your coil, and you'll dig up something that you hadn't really even thought about finding. That's what the kind of the adrenaline rush is when you start finding this stuff that you just have no clue, and then find out, oh my God, this is from the 1600s or 1700s or whatever. And we don't, Craig too, with the iron, don't turn your nose up at iron, guys. If you're in an old area and you're finding colonial stuff or whatever, and you never know what you're going to dig up. I mean, it's got to be an adventure for that. I mean, they use tools all the time, or they even everything was made. I mean, iron was iron, and you find a lot of it. But some of this stuff may be worth digging. As far as being a relic, it's like Civil War stuff. I mean, it's same way.
I was watching the Stealth Diggers the other day, and they were digging these. They dig these cellar holes and stuff, and they were finding these shoe buckles that they'd have a weird reading in it, and it was because the innards of the shoe buckle were iron. It had these little tines and stuff, the part of the inner part. It's like a frame around, and then it's got the thing that hooks on in the middle, but it's iron, and it's really cool looking. But those things read really low by themselves, or if they're with the buckle, they cause the reading to be lower.
Right.
So they were digging signals, as low as in the 30s, and a lot of times if they get a big iron reading, they go ahead and dig it because they know it's got to be something. It's like they find horseshoes, they find axe heads. Every once in a while, you find a gun part, maybe.
Yeah, the trigger guards or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, there's. I've found lock plates before. It's a really good find. I've seen people dig a barrel of a gun. With the sight on it.
Mm-hmm.
This one property I got permission on that I haven't been to in a while. It's there was a sword blade found on the property. It was part of a Civil War skirmish.
And bayonets, I would think bayonet sword or whatever, bayonets would be found broken or whatever, but it's not the greatest find. I mean, to me, it's the greatest find in the world because it's, historical and it's, it's iron, but it may be broken. But God, I mean, how many people could say I've dug a Sharp's rifle barrel or whatever? I mean, it's not something that's going to come out of the ground looking pristine or anything, but I mean, find a bayonet, find a, whatever, anything iron.
Yeah, find a pistol, find a canteen. A canteen would be, kind of hard to find because they were so thin that,
Right.
You can, most of the time you pick up the, the pewter or the lead top on it.
Right.
The spout. But what else? There's gun tools. There's there's all kinds of stuff that had to do with the camp. Utensils. A lot of the utensils were iron.
Oh yeah, wagon parts. So you got probably cannon stuff, cannon sights. I don't know what they made a lot of this stuff out of, but I mean a lot of it was probably iron.
A lot of the early Confederate sites, people were scavenging for iron, thinking that they were going to use it in the war effort. And a lot of these early camps, when they kind of gathered up all the iron, but then they were, suddenly in the spring of 1862, they were, had to move. A lot of them from they were camped in along the river, the Potomac and stuff, had to move. They moved right out to Centerville. But they basically left all that iron junk in the camps. So the early war camp, you find more, iron stuff than you do in the later camps. The Confederate, were being very careful that they didn't have the stuff to throw away. They had to use the stuff.
Right. So you might find a diamond in the rough. And getting the stuff out of the way anyways is a good idea because there could be buttons underneath it or whatever because you don't, a lot of masking, cellar hole sites too. I've often wondered and it'd probably be a pain to do at first, but how deep do those nails go? If it's only an inch or two, it may be worth scraping an inch or two off the ground to get the nails out of the way or thin the nails out a little bit, do a 10 by 10 area or a 5 by 5 area. And, where you think the most activity was or where you found stuff before and get that iron, the nails out of the way, or at least some of them, and then go over that area again. Because a lot of times these cellar hole sites are out in the middle of the woods or whatever. and you don't have to worry about, being somebody's yard, is, kind of rake it back out again if you wanted. But you're making it easier for your metal detector to find maybe some good stuff underneath them. Because it's like, trying to detect it through a chain link fence or something. It's really hard to do sometimes. I mean, there's detectors that can do it, but I mean, it's
if you watch the stealth diggers, they they'll hunt a site and then they'll come back and basically start kicking and moving logs, and sometimes they'll even bring saws and stuff, and cut stuff back and move everything out of the way, move rocks, and it's amazing how an inch or two can start bringing up more targets, and you got a lot of iron in these spots, so it's masking stuff too, and then a lot of the relics are iron, that you find knives, iron spoons, and all kinds of stuff at these house sites, so they're relics.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're kind of coming up. We like to keep these shows about half an hour or so. This is a topic that we could talk about for 2 hours or more, and probably a bunch of y'all out there. We got a lot of people on chat, and Peter, I want to know, am I Beaufoy, right? Is that how you pronounce your last name? I don't want to butcher it, but I probably did. But Peter's on there. Bob D, Gavin McGregor from McGregor from Australia. He's on this morning. Brandon's on. He's up there in New York, out of New York, and everything. He's got his coffee. So, appreciate you guys tuning in and everything. And I know a lot of people probably catch these on the replay too. So, we're just kind of doing these morning shows sporadically. If you have an idea for a morning show you want us to talk about, you guys can, post it up on Facebook for us and private message Craig or I. And that way we can, get it on the show for the next show or something like that, or get it in the schedule and everything. Just makes it, because, Craig and I could talk about anything. It really doesn't matter. Know a little bit about a lot. And we just don't do scripted very well. At least I don't do scripted very good. That show the other night, it got nuts for me because a lot of stuff happened right before the show, and I was knocking over drinks and everything else, and Craig was laughing at me. So it kind of got nuts for me, and it kind of rattled me a little bit. But,
I think you were a little nervous with the opening there.
Well, yeah, trying to explain this over on the air about Patreon and all that. It's not something that we really know a lot about.
It's a big change for us, and it's kind of exciting, but Instagram is starting to move a little bit, and I kind of like Instagram. I can switch all my photos from my page over to that one.
Right.
So it's we'll be putting announcements on Instagram and also on our Facebook page, Hardcore Metal Detecting Facebook page, and I got I think over 2,400 followers on that page.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I post most every day on that page too.
Yeah, and there's an Instagram Hardcore Metal Detecting that's doing real good too. I mean, we just started that up too, so it's it's building followers and stuff. And of course, we got about 20. I think we're almost up to 25,000 on Spreaker. A lot of avenues for you to check us out and listen to the shows and do the archive shows and everything, and download them if you like. And as time goes on, we're going to be adding stuff like I wanted to tell Peter too. He had a good question. Whether the swag bags and the giveaways that we're doing on Patreon, whether we're going to send out across the world. I said and yeah, we will. I mean, it's quarterly drawings and stuff like that. And I was just telling Craig, I said we have listeners from around the world. Japan, New Zealand, UK. I mean, just all over the place. But yeah, we're going to do that the best we can. I don't know all the rules, so to speak, but if we're able to ship there, we will, for our supporters and stuff. So just so you guys know, but you can check that out on patreon.com/hardcore metal detecting and see what we can offer right now. We're going to be adding to it and everything, but we're going to jump off here, Craig, right at a half an hour. So that's a good thing. You guys be careful driving and don't chat and drive. I like that.
Yeah, really.
Don't chat and drive. But yeah, we'll be on. We're going to try to do a show on Wednesday. That's kind of like a weird day. Sometimes I can do it. Sometimes I can't. But we're going to try to do these every Monday and Friday for sure. and then of course our regular show on Thursday and Saturday nights. And we have plans on starting up new, different kind of shows, different topics, or just for Patreon. So, if you're a supporter on Patreon, you'll be the only ones that can really listen to those shows, at least right off the bat, for a week or so before we transfer them over and make them public on Spreaker. I plan on having more in-depth, as far as individuals being on the show and stuff. Maybe, if you have a product that you use, that you've made, that kind of thing. But we're going to jump off here for now, guys. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out Patreon, and thanks you for, liking and following us and everything. We really do appreciate it. So have a good day and be safe. Keep digging. God bless.